But if 1 billion people stop eating meat, I tell you it has a big impact. Not only does it have a big impact on the current food system, but it will also inspire innovation of food systems.
Dear friends, scientifically, this is not a climate crisis. We are now facing something deeper. Mass extinction, air pollution, undermining ecosystem functions, really putting humanity's future at risk. This is a planetary crisis.
This is a safety crisis, but above all, it is also a justice crisis. Many areas in the world are uninhabitable. This uninhabitable zone is increasing. If we continue with our greenhouse gas emissions, then by 2070, as many as 3 billion people will live in uninhabitable zones.
These cricket tacos are delicious. Oh, you think eating bugs is weird? It's actually not. It's estimated that roughly 2 billion people around the world eat insects as part of their diet. I mean, I myself grew up eating some bugs like chapulines, aka grasshoppers. Insects are actually a great source of protein and nutrients, so they can be a great alternative to meat.
It's a very important point that you are addressing. My daughter, 24, inspired me and said, "Dad, how can you advocate for these zero carbon value chains if you still eat meat?" And so I stopped eating meat. Now the math would say, well, you need to stop eating meat 11 years to compensate for a flight to Thailand. Yes, but if 1 billion people stop eating meat, I tell you it has a big impact. Not only does it have a big impact on the current food system, but it will also inspire innovation of food systems. And I predict that we will have proteins not coming from meat in the future. They will probably taste even better. So why are we trying to mimic meat if we can have a better taste? They will be zero carbon and much healthier than the kind of food that we eat today. That is a mission that we need to get on. I can inspire you to maybe look at an organization called EAT, easy to remember, EAT, who have all the facts on this and who have the policies necessary, the innovations necessary, and the scale necessary in order to make food systems sustainable and healthy.
Thank you so much, Jim. And you're right, EAT is really a great foundation. You should all really look it up and if you have time.
I hope you don't mind me taking the liberty. I was careful not to drag in any dirt.
I don't mind the dirt. I do mind unannounced visits. You police.
Are you Sapper Morton? Civic number NK68514.
I'm a farmer.
I saw that. What do you farm?
This is a protein farm. Wallace design.
Heidi, you're topless. This is the top.
Oh my gosh, you need help. Hi guys. Oh my gosh, Heidi. Oh my god. This is the first. I have never done an interview like this before, Heidi. How are you, honey? I'm amazing. How are you guys? This is the first. Okay, Heidi, did you seen a rainworm alive before? No, I have not. I mean, the rain brought you out tonight, but did you and Tom go on a recent fishing trip to come up with this wild idea?
You know what they say, the early bird catches the worm. My husband, you know, I'm the worm.
You're the worm.
We're going fishing.
How many months did this take to get you in this? Oh my, you're even slimy!
Well, what was amazing for me today, it didn't take me so long, but to make the costume took a very long time.
Do you know approximately how long it took them?
A few months, you know, to build this. I had a few fittings.
Heidi, how do you think of a worm?
I don't know, I just thought of, some random thing. Last year I wanted to be a tree, but then he thought that was difficult to do, so I kind of started thinking outside the box. And then I thought a rainworm would be cute. That's something that we all know,
You are the
but don't
cutest
really love.
rainworm that I've ever seen. And Fisherman Tom over here, you about took his eye out.
Thank
Good
you.
God. Tom, when you married Heidi, did you think that this would, you were marrying into this, a Halloween spectacle?
I always loved Halloween myself, so yeah, I was ready for it.
I actually think it's one of the most delicious of the insects. I've tried all kinds of insects, professionally and recreationally. I like to say my life's mission is to breed a bug that tastes like bacon. I think these guys are as close as you can get directly. Mealworms, it's only been a couple decades that we've had them being produced at any kind of scale. Think about all the things that we do with corn or soy or one of these base ingredients. We found ways to take that ingredient and turn it into thousands of different types of products. Protein in general is the big challenge in food because people want more protein in their diets. Protein's expensive, and so insects are a really important missing piece of the food system. We don't talk enough about how much these guys are a superfood, but I would say insects are definitely a superfood. Super nutrient dense, just a whole lot of nutrition in a really small package.
We're in the middle of a biodiversity mass extinction, and we're in the middle of a climate crisis, and yet we somehow need to feed a growing population at the same time. We have to make change, and we have to make big change.
Insects have been a traditional food source in Southeast Asian countries, African countries, and Central American countries for centuries, for millennia. So for them, insects are a traditional delicatessen. And of course, there will be also some areas where it's more like one of the only protein source, so it's more like for necessity, but it's rare in the sense that we can find some markets in Thailand where insects are more expensive than meat.
Eating insects isn't a new thing, and it's all over the world. And currently, even while we're still trying to push for the normalization of insects more broadly as ingredients, they are a part of a lot of cultures' dishes. So in Cambodia, there's ants, and you'll have things like spiced grasshoppers in Japan. You'll have like the mopani or sago grub in South America, which is such a staple macro and micronutrient source. I've always loved anything with black ants because they have such a unique like lemon pepper zest flavor.
Which gets me thinking, if we were to replace meat with insects, that might just help curb emissions by cutting on meat production, and ultimately it can help save the planet from overheating, and it can help fight food insecurity in the process. Or can it? Let's find out. On today's episode of Can It Save the Planet, we're gonna find out the nutritional value of insects, if they're a sustainable alternative to meat, and if they provide food security. We'll be talking to an insect ambassador to learn more about cooking with bugs, and ultimately find out if eating bugs can help save the planet. Sponsored by undo.org. So first things first, let's talk about the benefits of eating bugs. I burrowed deep in the internet to learn more about which bugs are edible and to learn more about their nutritional value. Turns out, crickets and grasshoppers are some of the best insects you can eat. Which is why regions like South America, Asia, and Africa have incorporated these insects into their meals for generations. But to learn more about the benefits of eating bugs, we're gonna turn to Brooklyn Bugs, a group of edible insect ambassadors led by chef Joseph Yoon, who are trying to normalize bug eating in America as a sustainable source of protein. So let's find out how we can start eating bugs. So I visited Joseph at his New York apartment, which is where Brooklyn Bugs is headquartered. Joseph is such an expert in this area, it was such a privilege to not only talk to him, but to cook with him. He told me one of the most important things in a bug eating journey is to be accepting, since this could be really weird for a lot of people.
When someone's like, ooh, right? I don't get angry at them. I go like, I understand that this is like a new thing and that it could be viscerally disgusting for you. However, the more opportunities that we have to educate people to present this as food, period. Not as like, I dare you to eat this, like kind of like sensationalizing it, but truly to present it as like breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, American, Mediterranean, Korean, Asian, like all sorts of food, and just present it quite simply as this delicious, nutrient-dense, smart food.
Interested in trying bugs? Well, Joseph says getting your hands on some insects to cook with is actually easier than you might think.
of the hundreds of dishes that I share every year, 90 to 95% of those dishes are available online. The only bugs that are an exception where they aren't available online are the cicadas that I foraged and harvested myself last year.
You can just search for packaged edible insects on your browser and you'll see there are a few options as to where to get bugs. You'll even see some advertised as superfoods, because insects are jam-packed with nutrients.
Edible insects are extremely nutrient dense. They're packed with micro and macronutrients. So it means that they're really high in protein. You can have anywhere from like 50 to 80% of the insect's body weight comprised of protein. That's extremely high. But not only that, it's packed with like different vitamins and minerals. And so just like a really smart food to eat. It's also low in fat, low in carbohydrates. It's like, why aren't we eating edible insects?
Because we're afraid of them. But...
Oh, right, that thing, right.
So bugs are good for you, but do they taste good? Well, much like any other type of food, that depends on how you cook it.
When people are intrigued about cooking with insects, what I love to recommend is think about the best dish that you can make. If you're like great at making stir-fried noodles, then I would suggest like, okay, why don't we work with like making like stir-fried noodles and integrate crickets into them.
But before you start cooking, make sure you don't have any allergies.
Insects have chitin, the protein that's part of their exoskeleton, and it comprises of the same protein that's found in shellfish. So if you have a shellfish allergy, you might want to exercise some caution. But you might know someone that's allergic to crabs but not shrimp, right? Some people are just allergic to one insect. So everyone has like a different sort of reaction to this, but we issue a shellfish allergy warning just in case.
Are you still grossed out? Well, that's fair. But don't knock it till you try it. Googling some more info on edible bugs might help you get there.
They say in marketing that you need 7 points of exposure to adopt a new idea. So we really just try to create as many points of intersection to create more conversations and the opportunity to be able to talk about this in more manners than just coming from a point of rhetoric or dogma around environmentalism.
I mean, you just inspired me to go home and make tacos with like crickets or grasshoppers, so I will be doing that after this interview.
I can't wait to see how it comes out.
Now I bought some crickets to cook with, so I'm going to see if incorporating insects into my diet is sustainable. Because we now know the benefits of eating bugs, but we still don't know how switching chicken with crickets can help solve world hunger or even fight climate change. Now, eating a bug might come off more of an exotic dish in places like New York City, but there are other places around the world where eating bugs is the only option to survive climate change related events like heat waves and droughts. In Madagascar, for example, some of the population has consumed bugs as a seasonal snack throughout generations. But the current famine has resulted in more of the population turning to insect consumption as a matter of survival. Thankfully, there's someone already working on addressing this issue. Valhalla Farms currently produces 100 kilograms of crickets per week, yielding 65 kilograms of protein powder. but it's currently scaling up its production, aiming to produce up to 31,000 pounds of cricket powder each year, which is equivalent to 551,000 meals a year. Although insects have been helping communities fight food insecurity, they're not exclusively being used for malnutrition. In other parts of the world, insects are being presented as superfoods that are more sustainable for the planet, like this bag of crickets that I cooked with. There's also a company in Canada that farms, processes, and sells crickets for human and pet consumption. And yes, you could give your pet insects too. Although, quite honestly, my dog, he would eat anything. These crickets are so tasty. But wait, before I eat another taco, let's go back to talking about the sustainability aspect of insects as a food alternative. The FAO suggests edible insects are a promising alternative to going meat-free in a future that is heavily impacted by climate change. You see, the farming of insects requires less land, water, and feed than traditional livestock. Therefore, they produce significantly less greenhouse gas emissions. And science has backed this up. Researchers from the University of Helsinki found there is a great potential to reduce the carbon footprint of European consumers if they were to switch to insect protein. So we've learned 3 things so far. Number 1, insects provide high levels of nutrients. Number 2, they're helping rural communities with food security. And number 3, they're easier on the environment when mass farming. But we still haven't fully answered the question, have we? Can insects save the planet? Well, in some places, it already is. But how can we grow those case studies at a global scale? This question is mostly for Western folks. Let's be real, insects will probably never replace meat, and they don't have to. But even if insects were to be widely available everywhere starting tomorrow, the challenge then would have to be getting over the psychological barrier of crunching into insects. You know, the creatures most of us learn to hate and fear as children. There are technical and cultural barriers to overcome before most people are eating insects on a daily basis. I'd also like to remind you that insect consumption is not necessarily recommended for all groups of people, so it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And let me be clear, the reason why I say this is a problem for Western folks is because a lot of people around the world already eat insects. Americans, however, might be more willing than you'd think. According to an online survey published by the Journal of Insects as Food and Feed, 72% of Americans are willing to consider eating insects, which is good news because if the climate crisis worsens, they might not have an option. So yes, insects can help save the planet. So there you have it. Insects could be our salvation. Does this make you want to try insects tonight? If you do, then hit me up with recipes. Bug appetit!
You will eat the bugs.
Eating insects could help fight world hunger. From caterpillars and cockroaches to mealworm-covered apples.
You will live in the pot.
Putting 10 what we call pedestrians into the space. There's no privacy. As you see, there's no curtain, there's no wall.
You will wear the mask.
You fucking fucking me. Well, I do not have to wear the mask on. No, you have big fucking punk.
You will get the vaccine. You will welcome the refugee. You will celebrate Pride Year.
We'll convert your children.
You will watch the Hollywood movies. You will celebrate diversity. You will watch the pornography.
It changed. And so this is where you live. What do you like about it?
You will consume the product. Don't ask questions. Get excited for next product. You will not spread anti-Semitism.
This was posted by a professor at Rutgers University on his Facebook page. There is absolutely no price to pay who openly expresses such vile hate.
You will fight white people.
Look at the belly of the beast and we will gouge it!
You will put your kid on puberty blockers.
Well, you're a boy, right?
No, I'm a girl.
My son started telling me that he had a girl's brain in a boy's body. All of his authority figures telling me he's a girl.
You will send your daughter to Eurovision. You will have no privacy. You will own nothing.
Now is the historical moment, the time to shape the system.
And you will be happy.
Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley. And half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains. For the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Yea, ye shall flee, like as ye fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah king of Judah. And the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with thee. And it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear, nor dark. But it shall be one day which shall be known to the Lord, not day nor night. But it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. And it shall be in that day that living waters shall go out from Jerusalem, half of them toward the former sea, and half of them toward the hinder sea. In summer and in winter shall it be. And the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day shall there be one Lord, and his name one. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years.